Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. This video is sponsored by Magic War Legends, and let me tell you, this game is as close as you can get to a Might and Magic experience on your phones. It's made by dedicated Heroes of Might and Magic free fans, so they know what they're doing. It offers very home-like battle system, good hero progression, and much more. And if you like the style of game, then make sure to check them in the description below. Thank you Magic War Legends for sponsoring this video, and let's get right to it. So, welcome to the tier list. We're gonna be ranking all of the factions based on their strength in the Duel S template, okay? So this is gonna be like a very template-specific video, so if you are into duels, or if you're interested on what the duel meta is currently, then this is gonna be the video just for you. And without further ado, let's get right into ranking these factions. First up is we have Castle over here. Castle is right now a very good faction, okay? Archangels in the early and mid game are honestly kind of unstoppable, and you can amass a really good amount of them because of the new additional triple build that the current patch actually introduced. They also get like lots of marksman bosses, so playing it actually feels pretty convenient. So they're gonna be put high into A tier. They're no king. However, they're doing pretty well for themselves. And speaking of king, next up is we have Conflicts. Now, Conflicts in the current patch is absolutely destroying everyone. It is once again the best faction of all. There was a vote whether to keep Comfy, whether to let Comfy have Munir or not. And the high-rated players voted to keep Munir in the template, and because of that, Comfy right now reigns as the undisputed S tier. They get to have like the best late game by just building up phoenixes. If they wanted, they can just go like mid game and early break and control middle. They can do like whatever they want, and they will get away with it. So you have to pay like really high for Comfy if you ever, well, not want to lose a game of duel. Cove right now sits actually very surprisingly in a pretty tough spot. Their build-up doesn't really come online fast enough, and it's not really as strong as some of the other build-ups that you can do. Then also their heroes are kind of mismatched because, like, for example, if you go Eovashius, then you kind of have to play like into mid-game because late-game, like, magic heroes are not really that good. You have like a wasted skill and intelligence. That's only good for early game, basically. And they don't really get enough boxes to tempo out, like, almost no bird bosses are usually seen. However, there's more sewage bosses, so Eovatris is kind of happy about that, but like, kind of happy because birds would still be better even on him. So, yeah, Cove does not find its rightful spot, and it's gonna be sitting at, I'm deciding whether low B tier or C tier. I'm gonna put them B tier for now. And next up is we have Dungeon. Now, Dungeon is the most surprising faction of all to me. When I was doing a little bit of research for making this video, I contacted some of the higher level players and asked them what they think about the current factions and the current patch. Because, getting more opinions is going to be probably letting me make a better, more concise tier list. And honestly, many people are ranking Dungeon really, really high. With 3 towns available, they get to summon a bunch of creatures from middle, for example, so they can like forgo their biome entirely, not flag any dwellings whatsoever, and then just flag like whatever is in middle and get like immediately tier 7s from that faction, and a lot of them too, especially if they can make it on weak tier. You also have access to free vortexes. Also, their enemies lost their town, so they no longer have the downside of the opponents having the mana vortex too, just because they're playing versus Dungeon. And that puts them into high A tier. Many would say it's actually right below Comfy in S tier, but I would say it's actually high A tier instead. I am honestly not entirely a believer, and I give them like respect based on like what I heard other people have experienced with the faction, to be honest. Now next up is we have Fortress, okay? Now, Fortress is also like a pretty weird one, because the introduction of the third town, and given how easy your units are to build, you would think that the Fortress is going to be like reigning supreme, like really, really high, but that is not at all the case. They get like a good power spike on week 3, but after week 3, they fall off hard, because Continuing your development into your biome and playing for Hydras is a little bit too slow and not really good enough, in my opinion. Then transitioning into mid when you already like made so many investments into biome is also like kind of hard. So I feel like they kind of missed their mark. Like there's not exactly like a very good timing where they can just like get a lead that's good enough to win the game. So I would put them at B tier. Next up is we have Inferno. Now, Inferno, with the triple build meta right now, is doing pretty great. I mean, they get to like build out many doubles, many 3Ds, and their build path actually feels not too bad, because it's not a big leap to go from Ifritis that you would always go for anyway, and go up to doubles. And if you're triple building with all the dwellings on Inferno, it's really, really hard to beat. You can also like transition into demon farming. Their mid and late game are amazing. However, their early game holds them back. They don't get online that fast, they actually give up like a lot of space to their opponents usually. So, yeah. It's basically like very much like Comfy, except you don't have the early game. And that early game matters a lot. And so, they're gonna be going into B tier here as well. Next up is we have Necropolis. Now, Necropolis is doing surprisingly good given the nerfs that they received in the latest duel patch. They lost all of the vampire bosses. No more vampire bosses for Necro, like straight up. However, Necro finds itself being able to actually play the game without the vampire boss at all. They just regularly build out vampires. By week 3 that's good enough to break and do like any Utopia. And until then, they just invest into like Hall of Darkness. You know, you want to build Dread Knights, you want to build Ghost Dragons. And all the meanwhile, you're building up a Skelly stack at the same time. And that kind of army becomes like really hard to handle. Yeah, easy access to Utopias, big army buildup. The Necro Amplifier also helping you out, puts Necro in a really, really good spot. This is a good patch to be playing a lot of Necro, and so they're going into A tier. Now, Rampart. Rampart has received a massive buff in the sense that they got Mephala as an available hero. The armor specialist Mephala is like... it's amazing, okay? Like, playing it feels pretty good. Your units don't take any damage, you develop, like, your hero pretty well. However, it's not good enough. The faction itself does nothing. Like, absolutely nothing. Like, most of the L bosses were removed, so now you get, like, a bunch of Dendroids and Dwarves as your army? Like, what are you supposed to do with that if you go up against a faster break? And pretty much everything is faster than you, so you have to, like, brawl everything. And it feels really, really bad. The only thing they're good at is taking like an early Utopia, but that is not good enough. And so they have no early game, no mid game, and the late game is a question mark, because Mephala, if she can find like a good side zone, she can do a lot with that, but it doesn't warrant anything more than D tier. Rampy is by far the worst faction to play in the current patch of Duel. Next up is we have Stronghold. Stronghold, got Kraghack introduced, so they get to play the offense specialist, and honestly not a lot about them was nerfed. They also got the third town, of course, like everyone else did, so they get to like triple build bursts, maybe even from week 1, definitely by week 2, and they can also transition into behemoths as well, which are very, very hard to deal with. And yeah, they put Stronghold in a pretty good spot. I mean, it's like kind of middle of the pack. I would say it is better than Fortress, however, not as good as Inferno, because they don't get that many units if they do build up, and that's the problem, you know, like, Inferno gets like 4 tier 7 dwellings, meanwhile Stronghold only gets 2. Even if theirs is more valuable, like, the quantity does matter, and the low quantity of Stronghold dwellings is the only thing holding them back from being, like, really, really good. Then next up is we have Tower. Now, Tower also suffers from, well, honestly almost everything. Their heroes are kind of bad, though they got Neela introduced. So Neela is like maybe the go-to option right now, and then you build up army, but then you're like so exposed in the mid-game. Like week 3, if you're building up, you don't really have like any army that can do things easily. You know? Like, Thunderbirds, or with Monarchs, or Sultans are gonna be like clearing Utopias, clearing everything in the desert, but like what are you gonna be clearing the map with? Hydras? Giants? You can't upgrade the Titans yet, you need to farm Utopias. What are you farming Utopias with? I don't know. You could also go Somir, try the Temple, but that's also like pretty RNG dependent, and most of the time the opponents will be built up enough by the time that you get to them. So yeah, that puts Tower in a pretty uncomfortable spot to play right now. And in my opinion, they are going to be C tier. And last up is we have our new friend, Factory, joining Duel S. And now, where did he join? Where did he rank? So there's like a few playstyles for, well, okay, there's actually only one main playstyle for Factory, and that is going to be Sandworms into Quaddles. Honestly, many people don't even like care about Sandworms that much. They're all in on Quaddles. And honestly, it's a pretty good strategy. The builder for Quaddles is actually like really easy. You can possibly triple build Quaddles on week 2 and get 5 dwellings of them in the biome as well, making it a very superb strategy. Like, you can control the mid game with the Crimsons, and honestly, that's good enough to put you in a relatively good spot here. I would put them into low A tier for the good build-up. The reason why I said they have like a few playstyle options is because the best hero to play is actually not very widely agreed upon. Some people like Sam, like me, just like go super early mechanics early on and then transition to being like a super good might hero. Some people go Wyona with the scouting specialty. The downside is that you have archery, and archery does not really benefit the Quaddle playstyle whatsoever. And the other playstyles of the faction are honestly kind of bad. You don't really want to go bounty hunters, they just got blown up, way too low HP. You don't really want to go robots, they're just mechanical hydras. They get kited a lot and you don't even benefit from elixir, so you can't really go late game with them. So yeah, the other build path completely suffers and flops over, at least in the dual format. But the Quaddle build path is amazing and it carries them up to very low A tier. And yeah, that is my personal tier list for Duel S. And this is basically how I trade, though the B tier is like very up in the air. Like, these factions can go like below each other or above each other based on your preferences. But apart from that, I'm actually pretty comfortable saying that this is the current, the current meta for Duel. At least as far as we know, so yeah, based on the testing that we did so far. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list, and I'll be seeing you next time, where I'm gonna be going over the new duel patch as a whole. So until then, ciao ciao!